I can use one of that thing going on there. I can use that thing going.
In each flavorful morsel of meat, you can smell the hickory, oak, and applewood.
The 1970s were a decade full of unique flavors, creative dishes, and hearty meals that brought families together. These classic dishes were popular at family dinners, picnics, and community gatherings, creating lasting memories for those who enjoyed them. So join us as we look back at these 20 classic American foods from the 1970s we want back.
Let me dig in here and take a bite for y'all. Man, I got y'all.
Chitlins or chitterlings. In the 1970s, chitlins, known as chitterlings, were a classic American dish often enjoyed fried or boiled. To make them, the pig intestines were thoroughly cleaned and then seasoned with salt, pepper, and various spices for flavor. Some recipes called for marinating them in vinegar to reduce their pungent smell. Once prepared, they were either fried to crispy perfection or boiled until tender. Chitlins were served with hot sauce or vinegar-based sauces to add extra zest. While they were not found in upscale restaurants, they were popular in soul food joints and local diners across America, especially in the South. Back in the 1970s, making chitlins at home was relatively inexpensive, costing around $5 to $10 for a large batch, depending on the availability and quality of the ingredients. They were also sold in grocery stores and butcher shops, making them accessible to anyone interested in trying this unique and flavorful dish. Chitlins was indeed a classic, but what about hog maw? Can it beat chitlins? Let's find out.
I never had hog maw until I was married, so the only recipe I know is my mother-in-law's recipe, but I can say it is delicious, skin and all, and it's pretty good, simple to try.
Hog maw. Hog maw is a classic American dish that brings hearty flavors. To prepare it, the stomach of a thoroughly clean pig is stuffed with a flavorful mixture of sausage, potatoes, onions, and sometimes cabbage or peppers. The filling is seasoned with salt, pepper, and herbs for added taste. Once stuffed, the hog maw is sewn shut or secured with toothpicks to keep the stuffing inside. The dish was then baked in the oven until the hog maw was tender and the filling cooked through, creating a savory and satisfying meal. Hog maw wasn't typically found in fancy restaurants. Still, it was instead a staple at family gatherings, potlucks, and community events, particularly in regions with strong German or Pennsylvania Dutch influences, like Pennsylvania and parts of the Midwest. Making hog maw at home in the 1970s was relatively affordable, totaling around $8 to $12 for ingredients, depending on the size of the hog maw and the quality of the sausage and potatoes. It was also sometimes sold in butcher shops or specialty meat markets, providing an option for those who preferred to buy it ready-made.
If you haven't tried this, guys, it's definitely worth a try at least once in your life. It's not something you're going to sit around and eat all day.
Souse or head cheese. Souse, also known as head cheese, was a classic American food from the 1970s, beloved for its unique taste and texture. To make it, the meat from a pig's head was simmered until tender, then mixed with herbs, spices, and sometimes vinegar for added flavor. Once cooked, the mixture was poured into molds and allowed to set, forming a gelatinous loaf. After chilling, the sauce was sliced thinly and served cold as a deli meat or appetizer. It was often enjoyed with mustard, pickles, or crackers for a satisfying snack or light meal. Back in the 1970s, souse was inexpensive to make at home, costing around $4 to $8 for ingredients like the pig's head, herbs, and spices. It was also commonly sold in butcher shops, delis, and grocery stores, making it accessible to those who preferred to buy it ready-made. However, liver and onions still live in the hearts of many food enthusiasts, don't they?
Alrighty, go ahead and see if you can find some liver under those onions, Cameron.
I like a lot of onions with my liver.
Liver and onions. Liver and onions, a classic American dish from the 1970s, was a hearty and nutritious meal enjoyed by many. To prepare it, slices of beef liver were dredged in flour seasoned with salt and pepper, then fried until golden brown and cooked. Meanwhile, onions were thinly sliced and sautéed in butter or oil until caramelized and tender. Once the liver and onions were cooked, they were often served together on a plate, with the onions piled atop the liver slices. Some recipes included a rich gravy made from pan drippings, which added extra flavor and moisture to the dish. In the 1970s, making liver and onions at home was quite affordable, costing around $5 to $10 for ingredients like the liver, onions, flour, and butter. It was also a popular dish in diners, family restaurants, and home kitchens across America, where it was often served with mashed potatoes or rice and a side of vegetables. Liver and onions provided a satisfying and budget-friendly option for those seeking a comforting and nutritious meal. But what about cracklins? Was it healthy and budget-friendly as well?
Listen to her. Snap, crackle, and pop.
Cracklins. Cracklins, a beloved snack from the 1970s, were made from crispy and flavorful fried pork rinds. To make them, pork skin with a layer of fat attached was cut into small pieces and fried until golden and crunchy. Some recipes season them with salt, pepper, and spices like paprika or chili powder for extra flavor. In the 1970s, making cracklins at home was relatively inexpensive, costing around $3 to $6 for a batch, depending on the amount of pork skin used and the price of spices. They were also commonly sold at butcher shops, grocery stores, and roadside stands, where they were displayed in large jars or bags for customers to purchase and enjoy as a savory snack. Whether homemade or bought, cracklins provided a satisfyingly crunchy and indulgent treat for those craving a taste of salty goodness from the past.
Corn pones. Don't they look so delicious? Here we go.
Corn pone. Corn pone, a classic American dish from the 1970s, was a simple yet delicious type of cornbread enjoyed by many. Cornmeal, water, salt, and sometimes a little fat, like bacon drippings or oil, were mixed to form a thick batter. Unlike traditional cornbread, corn pone didn't include milk or eggs. Once the batter was prepared, it was shaped into flat cakes or rounds and fried in a skillet until golden brown and crispy, with a tender and moist interior. In the 1970s, making corn pone at home was affordable, costing around $2 to $5 for ingredients like cornmeal and oil. It was also commonly sold in diners, soul food restaurants, and roadside stands as a tasty side dish or snack. Corn pone provided a satisfyingly hearty and flavorful option for those looking for a taste of nostalgic comfort food.
Fatback was the way I was raised, and a lot of people my age was raised. Mama had fatback, then what she'd do, she'd fry it up. We'd eat the fatback, then she'd save the grease and make gravy.
Fatback. Fatback, a staple ingredient in 1970s American cooking, was salt-cured pork fat used to flavor various dishes like beans, greens, and soups. To prepare it, slices of pork fat were cured with salt and sometimes spices, then left to air dry or smoke until preserved. Fatback was often diced or sliced thinly in recipes and added to cooking pots to render its rich flavor into dishes. It provided a salty and savory taste, enhancing the flavor profile of many Southern and traditional American recipes. Purchasing fatback was relatively inexpensive, costing around $1 to $3 per pound, depending on the quality and source. It was commonly sold in butcher shops, grocery stores, and local markets, making it readily available for home cooks to incorporate into their favorite recipes. Fatback has its fan base, but who could forget chicken livers? Probably someone who is not from the 70s, that's for sure.
In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to cook chicken livers in a way that makes them taste delicious.
Chicken livers. Chicken livers, a classic dish from the 1970s, were a tasty and affordable option enjoyed by many. To prepare them, chicken livers were first cleaned and seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes garlic powder for added flavor. They were then dredged in flour to create a crispy coating when fried. Oil or butter was heated in a skillet, and the chicken livers were fried until golden brown and cooked through. Once fried, they were often served with gravy made from pan drippings or hot sauce for an extra kick of flavor. Making chicken livers at home was relatively inexpensive, costing around $3 to $6 per pound, depending on the quality and availability. They were also commonly sold in butcher shops, grocery stores, and diners, where they were featured on menus as budget-friendly and satisfying dishes. Chicken livers provide a flavorful and versatile option for those looking to enjoy classic American cuisine.
Well, I'm making a fried bologna sandwich. Have you ever had one of those? It's a great classic American treat.
Fried bologna sandwiches. Fried bologna sandwiches, a beloved classic from the 1970s, offer a simple yet satisfying meal for many. To make them, Slices of bologna were fried in a skillet until they were crispy on the edges and heated through. Meanwhile, slices of white bread were toasted lightly to add texture. Once the bologna was perfected, it was placed between the toasted bread slices, often with a generous spread of mustard for added flavor. Some variations included adding cheese, pickles, or onions to customize the sandwich to personal taste preferences. In the 1970s, making fried bologna sandwiches at home was affordable, costing around $1 to $3 for a pack of bologna and a loaf of bread. They were also commonly sold at diners, delis, and corner stores, where they were a popular option for a quick and inexpensive meal. Fried bologna sandwiches gave many Americans a nostalgic taste of comfort and simplicity.
I guess? Pickled pig's feet. There's nothing quite like a nice jar of. Not only have I never had pig's feet before.
Pickled pig's feet. Pickled pig's feet, a classic American delicacy from the 1970s, offered a unique combination of tangy and savory flavors. The pig's feet were thoroughly cleaned and then submerged in vinegar, salt, sugar, and spices such as cloves, peppercorns, and bay leaves to prepare them. Once the pig's feet were immersed in the pickling solution, they were left to marinate for several days or weeks, allowing the flavors to meld and infuse the meat thoroughly. The resulting pickled pig's feet were tender with a tangy and slightly spicy taste. In the 1970s, making pickled pig's feet at home was quite economical. Depending on the price of vinegar and spices, a batch cost around $3 to $6. They were also commonly sold in butcher shops, delis, and specialty food stores, where they were displayed in jars or barrels for customers to purchase and enjoy as a flavorful snack or appetizer.
Within a couple of days, Tom's nobbled another 6 squirrels, enough for a hearty squirrel stew.
Squirrel stew. Squirrel stew is a rustic and flavorful meal enjoyed by many. To prepare it, squirrel meat is first cleaned and cut into small pieces, typically from wild-caught squirrels. Then the squirrel meat is browned in oil or fat in a large pot or Dutch oven to enhance its flavor. Once browned, the squirrel meat was combined with various vegetables, such as potatoes, carrots, and onions, as well as celery. Seasoning spices like salt, pepper, and bay leaves were added, and the stew was then simmered over low heat until the meat was tender and the flavors melded together. Making squirrel stew at home was inexpensive, costing around $5 to $10 for ingredients like squirrel meat, vegetables, and spices. It was a popular dish in rural areas and among hunters who enjoyed cooking with game meat. Squirrel stew was also occasionally featured on the menus of diners and rustic-themed restaurants, where it offered a taste of traditional American cuisine with a wild twist. However, despite its unusual name, possum pie, like squirrel stew, became a beloved classic in American dessert culture.
Arkansas possum pie. Granny's Arkansas possum pie.
Possum pie. Despite its name, possum pie was a delightful layered dessert popular in the 1970s American culinary scene. To make it, a graham cracker crust formed the base, followed by a layer of creamy sweetened cream cheese filling. On top of the cream cheese layer, a rich and indulgent chocolate pudding was spread evenly. Finally, the pie was crowned with a generous, fluffy whipped cream. Back in the 1970s, making possum pie at home was quite affordable. Ingredients like graham crackers, cream cheese, chocolate pudding mix, and whipped cream cost around $6 to $10. It was a popular dessert choice for gatherings and potlucks, loved for its decadent layers and contrasting textures. Possum pie wasn't typically sold in commercial establishments, but its recipe was widely shared among home cooks and could often be found in community cookbooks or passed down through generations.
Y'all, take a look at this catfish, okay? It looks fabulous. So now it's time for me to taste it.
Fried catfish. Fried catfish, a classic American dish from the 1970s, was a delicious and satisfying meal enjoyed by many. To prepare it, catfish fillets were first dredged in a mixture of seasoned cornmeal or flour to coat them evenly. Then the fillets were fried in hot oil until golden brown and crispy on the outside, while remaining tender and flaky on the inside. Hush puppies were often served as a traditional accompaniment to fried catfish. They were small balls of cornmeal batter deep fried until golden and crispy. In the 1970s, Making fried catfish at home was inexpensive, costing around $5 to $10 for ingredients like catfish fillets, cornmeal, oil, and seasonings. Fried catfish was also a popular menu item in diners, seafood restaurants, and Southern-style eateries across America, where it was often served with coleslaw, fries, or other classic sides. It served Southern comfort food and was beloved for its crispy texture and delicate flavor.
Just put a little bit of that red-eye gravy. That's what they call that right there, red-eye gravy. So now you got a little Southern dish, a little dish from Tennessee right there, okay?
Grits and red-eye gravy. Grits and red-eye gravy offered a comforting and flavorful combination of creamy grits and rich coffee-infused gravy. To prepare it, grits, made from ground corn, were cooked in water or milk until thick and creamy. Meanwhile, the red-eye gravy was made by combining coffee and ham drippings in a saucepan and simmering until it thickened slightly. Once the grits were cooked to perfection, they were served hot in a bowl, with a generous ladle of the red-eye gravy poured over the top. The creamy grits and the savory, slightly bitter gravy created a delicious contrast of flavors and textures. In the 1970s, making grits and red-eye gravy at home was quite affordable. Ingredients like grits, coffee, and ham cost around $2 to $5. It was also a popular dish in diners, breakfast joints, and Southern-style restaurants, where it was served as a hearty and satisfying breakfast option.
Oh, look at that.
Hog jowls. Hog jowls, a classic dish from the 1970s, offered a flavorful and versatile option in American cuisine. To prepare them, pork cheeks were salt-cured, which involved rubbing them with salt and sometimes other seasonings, then allowing them to air dry or age for several weeks to develop their distinctive flavor. Once cured, hog jowls were often used in a variety of recipes. They could be thinly sliced and fried until crispy, creating a savory and indulgent dish. Alternatively, they were used to add depth of flavor when simmered with beans or greens, imparting a rich and smoky taste to these dishes. In the 1970s, making hog jowls at home was relatively inexpensive, costing around $3 to $7 per piece, depending on the size and quality. They were also commonly sold in butcher shops, specialty meat markets, and grocery stores, making them accessible to anyone interested in incorporating them into their cooking. With their salty and savory flavor, hog jowls offer a delicious taste of traditional American fare. However, don't fried green tomatoes evoke a similar sense of nostalgia?
That's how you make fried green tomatoes.
Fried green tomatoes. Fried green tomatoes, a beloved dish from the 1970s, offer a crispy and tangy treat. To prepare them, unripe tomatoes are sliced into thick rounds. Then the tomato slices are coated in a mixture of cornmeal, flour, salt, and pepper to create a crunchy breading. Next, the coated tomato slices were fried in hot oil until golden brown and crispy on the outside while retaining a firm texture. The fried green tomatoes were drained on paper towels to remove excess oil before serving. In the 1970s, making fried green tomatoes at home was quite affordable, costing around $2 to $5 for ingredients like green tomatoes, cornmeal, flour, and oil. They were also commonly sold in diners, Southern-style restaurants, and local eateries, where they were often featured as a side dish or appetizer. Fried green tomatoes provided a delicious taste of Southern comfort food and were enjoyed for their crispy exterior and tangy flavor.
But just look at this meat. Pulls off that loin. See what you think of that.
Rabbit stew. Rabbit stew was a popular dish in the 1970s. It featured tender rabbit meat cooked with vegetables and spices. To prepare it, you would need a whole rabbit cut into pieces along with onions, carrots, celery, and potatoes. These ingredients were simmered together in a broth made from water or chicken stock with seasonings like thyme, bay leaves, salt, and pepper added for flavor. Sometimes red wine or tomatoes were included for extra depth. In the 1970s, a whole rabbit would cost around $3 to $5, depending on the region, while the vegetables and spices would add another $2 to $3. Thus, the total cost to make the stew would be approximately $5 to $8. Rabbit stew was commonly found in rural areas and sold at local butcher shops, small grocery stores, and farmers markets. It was also featured in family-owned diners and restaurants specializing in hearty home-cooked meals. The dish was loved for its rich flavor and use of readily available ingredients. But could it compete with neck bones, another classic dish of the 70s?
Look at this. It is literally falling off the bones. You have this nice, thick, flavorful gravy full of nice succulent.
Neck bones. Neck bones were a beloved dish in the 70s, especially in Southern cooking. Pork neck bones were slow cooked until tender, often featured in a savory stew or paired with greens. You would need pork neck bones, onions, garlic, bell peppers, and spices like salt, pepper, and paprika to prepare them. The neck bones were browned in a pot and simmered with water or broth for several hours, allowing the flavors to meld. For added richness, some recipes included tomatoes or hot sauce. In the 1970s, pork neck bones were affordable, costing around 50 cents to $1 per pound. Additional ingredients like vegetables and spices would add another $1 to $2, making the total cost to prepare the dish around $2 to $3. Neck bones were typically sold in local butcher shops, small grocery stores, and farmers markets, especially in southern states. This dish was also a staple in soul food restaurants and diners, cherished for its deep, comforting flavors and the way it utilized economical cuts of meat to create a hearty, satisfying meal.
Chow chow is a southern relish. I love it. I put it on everything, my hot dogs, my burgers, and now I'm going to put it on my pulled pork sandwich.
Chow chow. Chow chow was a famous tangy relish in the 1970s, and it was made from a mix of chopped vegetables. To prepare it, you needed green tomatoes, cabbage, onions, and red and green bell peppers, and sometimes cucumbers. These vegetables were finely chopped and mixed with vinegar, sugar, mustard seeds, celery seeds, and turmeric for flavor. The mixture was then cooked until the vegetables were tender and the flavors melded together. In the 1970s, the ingredients for chow chow were relatively inexpensive. Green tomatoes, cabbage, and peppers cost around $1 to $2, and spices and vinegar add another 50 cents to $1. Therefore, making a batch of chow chow would cost about $1.50 to $3. Chow chow was sold at farmers markets, local grocery stores, and roadside stands, especially in the southern United States. It was a staple in home kitchens and often found in small family-owned restaurants. This relish was cherished for its tangy, slightly sweet flavor and versatility, commonly used to enhance dishes like beans, hot dogs, and sandwiches.
They just call this hog head cheese or head cheese or souse meat.
Souse meat sandwich. The souse meat sandwich was a unique and flavorful option in the 1970s. Souse, also known as head cheese, was made from various parts of a pig's head, cooked and set in a gelatinous loaf. To prepare a souse meat sandwich, you needed souse slices, white bread, and either mustard or mayonnaise. To make souse, pig's head parts were simmered with vinegar, onions, and spices like cloves, bay leaves, and allspice. Once tender, the meat was chopped and mixed with a cooking liquid, which could gel as it cooled. This process could be done at home, but many people bought souse pre-made. In the 1970s, souse cost around 50 cents to $1 per pound. White bread and condiments like mustard or mayonnaise added another $1, making the total cost for a sandwich roughly $1 to $2. Souse meat sandwiches were often found in delis, local butcher shops, and southern grocery stores. They were a favorite in family kitchens and small diners, known for their distinctive savory taste and the combination of smooth souse with tangy mustard or creamy mayonnaise.